Dallas Stars and controversial plays in the opponent's crease in the playoffs. Name a more iconic duo. I'll wait. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken lose in Game 4 to the Dallas Stars 6-3, which of course evens the series at 2, and now we will get at least 6 games out of this second round series and go back to Dallas with the series evened up, just like it was for the Kraken, going back to Colorado for Game 5 in that one. And just to be clear, right off the bat, because I know there's going to be some Stars fans who, after that intro, are going to want to jump right into the comment section and get on me about how it wasn't goaltender interference, or that isn't why the Stars won this game. Was it goaltender interference? Yes, it absolutely was, and we'll get to that. Did it affect the game? Well, because of how the Kraken played the third period, it ends up that it did. But even after all that, the team that played better for most of this game still ended up winning it. But before we get to all that, and we are going to spend some time on that play that, in effect, nets the Stars 2 points in this game, the one piece of good news for the Kraken in Game 4 was that Jared McCann was back and playing for the Kraken in this game. He was playing in maybe somewhat sheltered minutes, playing most of the game on the fourth line, although he was still on the power play and penalty kill for a little bit, though he really wasn't in his normal role on the kill. Either way, I would expect that he is back in a first or second line role come Game 5, especially with the outcome of this game being the way that it was. Not to mention the fact that he actually played pretty well in this game. It took him a little while to get warmed up into it. He got a shot on goal in his first shift, but past that, yeah, the first period took him a little while to get going, but by the third period, he was one of the more effective Kraken players out on the ice. So again, with Game 5 now being very important, I would expect that he's going to be playing a bigger role. Oh, and as far as the Stars are concerned, yes, Heiskanen, as expected, was back in this game, even if it was with the full face shield after taking that puck to the face in the second period of Game 3. With that out of the way, though, we might as well jump right into the game. And the first period, honestly, I thought it was played a lot closer between the two teams than what certainly the shots on goal would reflect, where by the end of it, I think the shots on goal were 11-6 in favor of Dallas. Maybe it was 11-5 even, and so basically 2-1 in favor of the Stars. And while I do think the Stars had the edge in this period, it, again, I think was a little closer when it came to the actual scoring opportunities. Either way, right out of the gates, it was clear that the Stars were eager to prove that they weren't just going to go away after what happened in the third game, which was also evident based on the fact that the Stars had decided to reload up their top line, putting Pavelski back up there with Jason Robertson and Rope Hintz. And those three nearly got the Stars on the board right away. Grubauer was able to make the save there, and then later in this first period, he came up with a massive save that started off of another one face-off in the Kraken end by the Stars. Of course, the Kraken still having issues winning face-offs. That led to a Suter shot, which rebounded out for Seguin, and then Grubauer makes a huge save, like I just said, barely getting his glove back out in front of the shot from Seguin to deflect it over the net. Going back to that first line for the Stars, though, honestly, I didn't feel like that first line, even with the Pavelski, Robertson, and Hintz all being up there, had that much of an impact on this game. Yes, both Pavelski and Hintz do end up scoring in this game, but I think both of those were on power plays, so it really didn't have much to do with how that line played 5-on-5, and the Gord line, which was getting the majority of that matchup, again, did a pretty good job of shutting it down for the most part, like we saw them do, again, for the most part, in the first series. Through all of that, though, even with that Grubauer save early on, and the Kraken again getting their chances here and there, by the end of one, Dallas, for the third time in this series, scores first to make it 1-0, late in this first period on their second power play opportunity of the period. The first one coming about halfway through, which did create some momentum. The Kraken were able to kill it off, but they had a number of shots on goal, and really the Kraken had to fight to get this one killed off without allowing the first goal. Eventually, Seattle actually ends up getting a power play of their own, but let up a shorthanded chance right back the other way, and then Dunn takes what honestly was probably a good penalty on a slash to prevent Foxa from getting the shot off, as he had gotten through everybody and right out in front of Grubauer. That ends up sending it to 4-on-4, and then as 4-on-4 is coming to an end, the Kraken have possession of the puck as Alexiak and Borgen have it in the Dallas end of the ice, and then instead of passing it back and maintaining possession to kill off some of this now minute of Dallas power play, Alexiak just kind of throws it down into the corner behind the Dallas net while both Borgen and he are deep in the offensive end. That allows Dallas to start a breakaway and a rush chance back the other way, and that rush chance ends up in the back of the Kraken net as Ben makes a nice play to toe drag out in front of, I think it was Borgen that got back. Either way, he makes the nice move to toe drag out in front of a Kraken player, then fires off an equally good shot perfectly to the top corner short side over Grubauer to give Dallas that lead, which they would carry into the first intermission. Then the second period, which starts off pretty slow, neither team really getting much as far as dangerous scoring opportunities are concerned, certainly not like either team was getting in the first period. Even with that having been said, eventually it is Dallas on a rush chance that ends up making it 2-0. And of the 5 goals that Grubauer lets in, this is probably the one that you would have liked to see a save on. It still isn't defended well by the Kraken as they're able to rush through the Kraken defense. Domi eventually passing it through, I think, 3 Kraken players to get it to Harley, who gets the shot off. Still, the shot Grubauer sees coming, and it's from decently well outside, straight at the net. Harley beats Grubauer, it's 2-0 Stars. And then we get to the middle of the period where, yeah. Once again, this play also starts on a bit of a Dallas rush down the other way. This time, actually against the flow of plays. The Kraken, for either the first or second time this game, had really started to build some momentum here halfway through the second. Either way, Dallas gets it back down to the Kraken end. There's some chaos in front of Seattle's net, and they score to make it 3-0. But the Kraken are going to challenge for goaltender interference, and I know what people are going to say. I'm biased as a Kraken fan, and probably there is some of that. But either way, this is 100% goaltender interference, and honestly, I do not understand how this doesn't get overturned. Well, I mean, we'll get into it. Let's start with the play itself, where, well, first off, I wish I could show video here, but because of copyrights and all that, it's more of a headache than it's worth for me at this point. I think the screenshots tell enough of a story. Either way, it's part of the Sportsnet or NHL official YouTube channel's highlight reel from this game, so you can go and watch it there. But Jamie Benn comes into the play on that rush and gets around the 2 Kraken defenders, which, granted, already is not the best defense from the Kraken. But he skates right up in front of the net and into the crease where he makes clear contact with Grubauer, having not been touched by another Seattle player. And that pushes Grubauer out of the crease, and yes, I'll admit that Grubauer may have acted that up a little bit to try and draw the attention of the officials, but it's obvious contact in the crease, the top of the crease, but still in the blue paint, between an untouched Ben and Grubauer shoulder to shoulder, which sends Grubauer out of the crease to the other side. Now, the shot doesn't come right away. Grubauer is able to collect himself, and I do think he has a chance to get reset here, but just as he gets reset, Ben is, I would say, pushed a little bit, but given a little bit of a shove, and then once again, as he's going in front of Grubauer, does hit Grubauer and prevents his glove hand from getting back in front of the net and further pushes Grubauer out of the crease. So the shot can go right past Grubauer into the far side, past the glove hand, to score that goal for the Stars. Now, this second contact does come outside the crease, and that's, I think, the one that everyone's looking at, saying, yeah, the contact's out of the crease, and Ben was pushed a bit, so this is somewhat incidental contact. I think that's fair enough, but really the problem here still stems from that first contact when Ben came in, again, completely untouched, and made that contact with Grubauer inside the top of the crease in that blue paint. And the fact, and I do mean fact, that this is goaltender interference becomes immediately obvious when you go to the NHL rulebook, this year's NHL rulebook, and read the rule for yourself, where it's right there under Rule 69, nice, which is somewhat ironic for a rule whose ambiguity in how it's been enforced over the last few years has had a decidedly not nice influence on the game. Either way, Rule 69.1, a little ways down, goals should be disallowed only if 1. An attacking player, either by his positioning or by contact, impairs a goalkeeper's ability to move freely within his crease to defend his goal. Or 2. An attacking player initiates intentional or deliberate contact with a goaltender inside or outside of his goal crease. Incidental contact with a goalkeeper will be permitted and resulting goals allowed when such contact is initiated outside the goal crease, provided the attacking player has made a reasonable effort to avoid such contact. So again, by the rule, I can understand the argument for the second contact on Grubauer here not being goaltender interference. It does come outside the crease, and I think you can make a good argument that it was incidental and that Ben made an effort to not make contact with Grubauer. Still, the only reason that Grubauer's out there in the first place is because of the first contact, which, even outside of whether or not Grubauer had a chance to partially get back on his feet and get a little bit reset, he still was not able to get in position to where he would have been had that first contact not happened. And that first contact not only is clear goaltender interference as far as taking away a goal is concerned by the rule that we just read, but also by the rule for a penalty on goaltender interference could easily have been called a minor had it been seen by the officials, or I guess not seen, but paid attention to. But even with all that having been said about what the actual rule says in the actual NHL rulebook for this year's NHL, we all know that we can pretty much throw that out the window because how it's actually called is completely different. First of all, with that initial contact, we all know that even though we just saw it's black and white in the rule book that this is clearly a minor penalty on Jamie Benn here for initiating intentional contact with Grubauer in his crease. There's no way, especially in the playoffs, that is going to get called a penalty, as an attacking player would basically have to commit a felony against a goaltender in the playoffs to actually draw a penalty call here. And then, when it comes to the second contact, yes, I've already said a couple of times that I think you can make a good argument based on what's written in the rulebook that this isn't goaltender interference between the push, Ben making at least some kind of effort to not make contact with Grubauer, and Grubauer, regardless of how he got there in the first place, being outside the crease. Even with that having been said, though, when it comes to how the rules actually enforced, over the course of just this regular season, we have seen goals get called back for much less. And in the end, regardless of what happens on this play, I think that's really the biggest issue here, is that nobody, players, coaches, or really even it seems like the referees themselves, have any idea what goaltender interference is, game to game, moment to moment, what have you. Heck, after the game, McCann said as much when he said, and I'm quoting here, so excuse me for some spicy language, but it's what the man said. I don't know what the hell goaltender interference is. I really don't. I don't think anybody in this league does. That's what he said. And yeah, obviously there's some bias with him in this particular situation, but I don't think he's lying about the fact that nobody in this league has any idea what goaltender interference is, because there is no consistency when it comes to when it gets called and when it doesn't. For the Kraken in this particular situation, do I think they challenge this if it's the first goal in the game? Honestly, I don't know that they do, because you don't have a great shot at winning it. It's pretty much a 50-50, and if you lose it, you give up that power play. But with this being the third goal of the game, they're really given no choice. They have to challenge this because there is a chance that that third goal comes off, and if it does, that's a huge swing in the chances of getting back into this game. And while as a fan, I'll admit, and I think most fans feel this way, it is fun to have some randomness and chaos thrown into the game. Heck, we watch a game, again, that's played on ice with sticks where you whack around a frozen puck, so there's plenty of randomness. The one place I think you don't want randomness would probably be with the rules, where you'd like to at least have some idea of what's going on. And even if fans don't necessarily always have an idea, which you'd probably like to have fans have some idea of what's going on, otherwise why would you watch? Well, you'd really like to have your players and especially coaches have some idea of what to expect, and clearly that's not what's happening here. Which leads neatly into what was, well, probably not the most frustrating part about this whole situation, but at the very least the cherry or icing on top of it, as Haxtell, when he was asked after the game what he thought about this whole goaltender interference challenge situation, well, for one, he too obviously thought it was goaltender interference, otherwise he wouldn't have bothered challenging it. But the frustrating part is that he was apparently not given any explanation by the officials as to why the call was upheld. Which, I mean, what are we even doing here? What in the actual heck are we even doing here? You can't even bother to have any kind of consistency that would allow a coach to have some idea of what's going on in the first place when it comes to trying to challenge a situation like this. And then, even on top of the fact that he has no idea going into it, you can't even be bothered to explain to him after the fact how you came to that decision after, by the way, taking almost 5 minutes to come to that decision in the first place. All they can do is come out and say, nope, call on the ice stands. And that's it. Can't even skate over, not even, forget the guy that's actually announcing it on the ice. You can't have the other guy with the orange wristband skate over to the coach who made the challenge in the first place and explain to him why you and the situation team at Toronto, who knows what the heck they're doing, can come to this decision. Really, then the only thing that makes any sense here, the only reason that they wouldn't go to Hackstall to explain to him why this wasn't called like any other official in any other league after any other challenge would, is because the officials themselves have no idea or real explanation as to why they chose to uphold this call, other than, what the heck, it's the playoffs and we don't want to call anything. So yeah, it stands, and now the Dallas Stars get a power play. Because, oh yeah, that's right. Not only does this one very important playoff goal hinge on this completely ambiguous, random decision that the officials are making off of what might as well be the wind speed outside or the average flight speed of a Leighton Swallow in Australia, which again takes them almost 5 minutes to come to the decision on, but it also gift wraps a power play now to the Stars because they decide to uphold that call. And of course, the Stars end up scoring on that power play. About halfway through it, I don't know, it hardly matters. This power play goal, which comes from a shot that rebounds out to Pavelski, because of course it goes right to Pavelski. He continues to find the puck luck. He puts that shot in off the rebound, and it's now 4-0, where, again, just one decision a little bit earlier that could have flip of a coin ended up the other way, could have had this still a 2-0 game, and well within reach for the Kraken. Still, not great that the Kraken have allowed the Stars to get to that 2-0, but there's a big difference between 2-0 and 4-0. Now, with that rant out of the way, for those of you who just came here for that and aren't going to stick around for the rest of the video, again, I am going to point out that the team who played better for the majority of this game did end up winning it. So while these 2 goals for the Stars do end up making a pretty big difference in this game, so this call, which again I think was a bad one, and by the rules certainly was, regardless of how things are called here and there throughout the regular season and postseason, I think the ambiguity of the rule, you can make arguments for or against this goal counting. Either way, if you're the Kraken, they allow this whole sequence to end up mattering in the game and allowing for it to get out of hand. They put themselves in the situation where this matters in the first place. And for that matter, even once the 3rd goal is allowed, it's not like that gift wrapped the goal on the power play for the Stars. The Kraken still could have killed that off, and they didn't manage to. At least for the Kraken, though, while they do give up the power play goal to make it 4-0, they are able to respond to that one pretty quickly back the other way with their first of the game that comes off of a rush chance for them. So a lot of rush chances back and forth this game, mostly 4th in favor of the Stars. But still, the Kraken get it into the offensive end. It goes off of Geeky's shin, off the end boards, out to Schultz, who's diving down into the play. Schultz centers it out in front of the net, where Schwartz is able to tip it in past Ottinger to at least give the Kraken a chance of getting back in this game, still with plenty of time here left in the second period. But unfortunately, the Kraken are never really able to get any momentum built off of this first goal to get anything going, at least here in the second period. And then towards the end of the second period, the Kraken, with another admittedly defensive breakdown, is most of the reason this goal goes in. But it's another shot from up by the blue line that rebounds off of Grubauer. And while it is lucky for Hintz that it goes right to him, it goes right to Hintz, who's the only player within a number of feet of Grubauer when he gets this puck, and he puts it past Grubauer to make it 5-1, which, again, this one's really hard to put on Grubauer. Sure, he lets up the rebound, but if, there had been any Kraken player anywhere near him, or around Hintz for that matter, the rebound probably doesn't end up in the back of the net, or certainly not as easy as it did. Now, to Seattle's credit, and I do think this gives some hope for how Game 5 could end up going, the third period was a fantastic one for the Kraken. They really maintained momentum pretty much the entire way through, and almost end up making this game, well, I'd say they at least made the game interesting towards the end of it, as they do end up getting one back early on in the third. It's another one for Jaden Schwartz, this time off of a pass from almost below the goal line from Oliver Bjorkstrand, right out into the slot. Schwartz buries that shot past the blocker side of Ottinger. It makes it 5-2, still a long ways to go, but the Kraken had a number of chances to get those last couple of goals that they needed. One that Schwartz once again almost creates a play here, as he gets a tip for Alexiak right next to the net that goes off of the post, then off of Ottinger, then off of the post again, and somehow stays out. The Stars definitely getting the favor of some bounces here and there, especially throughout this third period. The Kraken nearly scored on another couple of occasions. Susi had a wide open shot out in front of the net where he once again tried to beat Ottinger through the 5-hole in a near identical situation to the one that he scored on Ottinger through the 5-hole in game 3 with, though this time he's actually closer to the net and has nobody in front of him. Still, Ottinger this time was ready for that attempt through the 5-hole. He makes the save, a big one there for the Stars. And the Kraken do eventually get a third one in, which at least makes it interesting for the last few minutes to make it 5-3. This one coming from a bomb of a shot up near the blue line from Adam Larsson, as he becomes the 17th Kraken goal scorer of these playoffs. But in the end, it just wasn't enough, as the Kraken do end up going empty net for almost the last 4 minutes of this game. And eventually another good series of shots actually impressed by the Kraken ends up with a puck that bounces off a couple of Star sticks right out past the blue line where only Domi can get to it, and he skates it into the empty net for that 6-3 score. And again, ultimately the team that played better for the majority of this game did end up winning it. For the Kraken, there's the silver lining that they at least made it interesting going into that third period with that 5-1 score, and had that great third period that hopefully they can build on going into game 5. But they're going to have to come out with a better effort if they want to win 2 more games in the series to move on to the conference finals. And one more time, well, yes, it was very frustrating from a Kraken standpoint, that whole goaltender interference situation, which you could definitely make an argument that if the probably correct call is made there to take that goal off the board, then the second one doesn't happen. And then it's potentially a 3-3 game late rather than a 3-5 game, and we end up having overtime here. Still, like I said before, and I'm sure the comment section has already beat me to it and is probably not listening to me at this point, the team that played better in this game won it, so that really wasn't the difference in this game. If the Kraken wanted to win this game, you could probably, not allow guys like Rope Hintz to get wide open in front of your net to collect rebounds, or let's say hold on to the puck when you have possession of it at the end of a 4-on-4 with the other team about to go on a power play. But the Kraken made plenty of mistakes in this game, those two among them. Gord also had a terrible turnover on the penalty kill in the defensive end, which led to a wide open shot in the middle of the slot for Jason Robertson, who ended up, I think, putting that shot over the net. So the Kraken escaped that one, but a team as good as the Stars, especially when the Kraken were as generally sloppy, I thought, in this game, especially in the first and second period as they were, the Stars are going to take advantage of enough of those mistakes to end up winning this game. And really, that was the difference. Even if you take those 2 goals off the board, the one that comes off for the questionable officiating, and then the power play one that would have happened if the correct call had been made, sure, the overtime might happen, but honestly, I don't know if the Kraken really deserved to get to overtime in this game, even with the fight back they had in the third period. So, yeah, I don't really know what more there is to say about this game. I guess I did forget to mention that Jones did come in for Grubauer for the entire third period, which honestly I think had more to do with, at that point, the game's out of hand. It's 5-1, and you might as well just give Grubauer 20 minutes of extra rest to get ready for the next game. Outside of that one goal, which was still a wide open shot getting past the defense, but one that Grubauer probably could have had on the second Stars goal. Really, I didn't think that Grubauer had a terrible game. There was just a lot of unfortunate things that happened around him that led to a lot of those goals. Ottinger, I think, had a tougher game in game 3 than Grubauer did in this one, so I'd expect Grubauer, certainly, I don't think it's a stretch to say that he'll be back in net for the Kraken in game 5, which, by the way, we will be streaming for on the channel, with that being an away game. Oh, and finally, as far as Kraken 3 stars, I do think we can find 3 here, but we'll get through them pretty quickly. The first one I think is pretty obvious. Jaden Schwartz, definitely deserving of a star with the 2 goals and being, I think, pretty easily the best Kraken player out on the ice. And then the other 2, I'm going to go with the defensive pairing of Dunn and Larsson. As a pair, I think having their best game of the playoffs, certainly Dunn, I would say, had his best game of these playoffs so far as a full 200-foot game is concerned. After a fantastic regular season, he's had, I would say, overall a disappointing run here through what's now 11 games of these postseason. Hopefully that can be something he builds off of here in game 4. He and Larsson, especially as a pair, as the Kraken will need them throughout the last however many games of this series, and then if they're able to move on. And as far as points are concerned, Dunn did have 2 assists, and Larsson obviously the goal. Otherwise, let me know what you think down in the comment section. Obviously, I'm sure most of you have already been down there with the whole goaltender interference thing. let me know what you think going into game 5. Another game 5 with the series tied, though this time we go back on the road with a little bit of a different feeling, with game 4 last time ending at home in that overtime win with Eberle. So hopefully the Kraken are able to build off of that third period and we can come back home with a chance to win the series, just like we had against the Avalanche. Until then, though, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that stuff down below to help support the channel. So I'd appreciate you using them. Hopefully we'll see you for the stream on Thursday for that game 5. Until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.